Welcome to another 21 Hats Dashboard. I'm here with Rob Levin, who is co-founder and chairman of WorkBetterNow, which provides remote workforce and virtual assistant services to small businesses. Welcome to Dashboard, Rob.
Thanks, Lauren. Really excited to have a nice chat with you today.
It's great to have you here, Rob. You have a particular area of expertise. You've had a number of businesses, so you have a lot of expertise. But in particular, your business now is involved with talent and hiring. And we all know we've been through an unusual few years in terms of the labor market. And there's always conflicting reporting out there, conflicting narratives about where things are going and whether they're getting better, and there are always threats looming. I'm really eager to get your perspective. You and your team talk to business owners all the time. Where do you think we are?
So first of all, let me take just a step back and talk and just remind everybody something that they already know, but they really need to think about is that your people and your culture are going to be probably the biggest keys to your success, right? How well you do.
Sure.
And it's never been more important to have the right people in the right seats in your company. And a lot of that has to do with all of the change that's going on and the pace of change. And of course, the business owner can't do everything themselves. So you have to have terrific people. And what's going on is when I say we, I mean small and mid-sized businesses, and make sure I come back to that. We are in a talent crisis, and we've been in one for a while. And we're probably getting used to it, but it's not going away anytime soon. And there's a lot of reasons for this. It's a combination of a number of things. One is demographics. We have an aging population, right? The other thing is, and unfortunately, a lot of this is attributable to the younger generations in the workforce, but there's a low engagement rate in work. Now, again, in a small or mid-sized business, you need everybody fully engaged, right? I don't know anybody that can afford to have a slacker. And, this is the thing I wanted to come back to. If you read the papers today, or social media, whatever it is, however you get your news, you're reading something very different, which is and I would have air quotes if you saw me on video right now, the power is shifting back to the employer, right? And salaries are going down and this doesn't apply to most small and mid-sized businesses, at least not the ones we're talking to. And we talk to a lot. We have a lot of clients. We're always talking to small and mid-sized businesses. The ones that we know are having trouble. They have people that they don't want to hold on. They really don't want to have in the company, but they can't replace them. And they just simply can't find, good people today. And so it's aging. It's the aging population. It's the fact that engagement is so low, meaning there are people that actually say, I can't believe this is a thing now, not only I'm going to do as little as possible or the minimum level of work required, but I'm going to talk about it, which, it just
on TikTok.
Yeah, exactly. Of course, where else? So we're in a talent crisis because it's really hard to find and keep the people that you need to run your business today. And again, it's not going to get any better.
I couldn't agree more about the discrepancy between what we read in the general press and what we experience in all of our own businesses. It's a very different story for big corporations, and obviously that's what gets the most attention. I will say I'm a little bit surprised to hear you bring up the engagement issue as strongly as you have, referring to small businesses. I know it exists. I know it's an issue, but my sense was that that's a bigger issue for bigger companies. Am I wrong about that?
No, you're not wrong about that. It is a bigger issue for bigger companies. There are plenty of small businesses affected by it, but it is largely a bigger company issue. But the point is that we have a workforce that as a whole does not have a high level of engagement. So here's one way to think about it. How many small businesses do you know that hire people that have big company experience? It's probably not very high. Like, I know I don't look for people that have big company experience. I want people who worked in other small businesses.
The only time I hear about it is when somebody is telling a nightmare story of a mistake they don't ever want to make again.
There you go. So if you think about that, the fact that a large part of the working population is in large companies, the low engagement rate's an issue because again, that's part of the universe of people you can hire from. And if those people are not engaged, you obviously cannot hire from them, just leaving a much smaller pool to hire from. Not to mention there are plenty of small businesses that are dealing with a low engagement issue.
Can you point to data about this? I mean, you do have a window on this that few of us do. You are talking to business owners all the time, but I'm curious if there's other evidence of this being a crisis, especially for smaller businesses.
I don't have data on engagement and small businesses. I do have data, and it's very consistent, no matter what source you go to, about the U.S. workforce in general, which says about 70% of the U.S. workforce is not engaged. Now, the definition of what is engaged and isn't, that's a whole discussion in and of itself. But when almost 3/4 or a little more than 2/3 of the workforce is generally not engaged, that's an issue that's going to affect everybody.
And it shows up most prominently in the businesses that you talk to in terms of...
I'll tell you how it shows up. I'll tell you exactly how it shows up. It shows up when we're having a consult with business owners and, they are saying, they're coming to us because they can't find good people in the States. It's as simple as that.
And is this for all levels, particular types of talents?
Well, I can only speak about our personal experience, and the people that we provide to our clients are, above entry level and below managerial level. I don't know about executive level. That's a whole different ballgame. But that's not the bulk of the workforce that as a small business you have a few executives at your company, right? So it's for those, they're coming to us to get those people that are in between that entry level, for those roles that are in between entry level and managerial.
And what do you tell them?
Well, they're coming to us because we can help them with that. So that's, and what we do, and I don't want to go into too much detail on us, but we provide talent from Latin America because we've tapped into a workforce that they get behind a company's mission and they're fully engaged and, great attitudes and all of that stuff.
Can you tell the difference between a company that is struggling to find good people because there aren't enough good people looking for work right now and a company that just isn't doing a good job of hiring? Because, we know both exist. I'm
gonna take that in a slightly different direction. And this actually, ties into our mutual friend, Sean Bussey. And the companies that have good cultures, really good cultures by design, right? Those companies have less of an issue finding and keeping good talent. Those companies, of course, are, believe it or not, in the minority. And no, I don't have any stats on that. But, it's funny. I'm going to leave names out. I was having a couple of drinks last night with a few clients, some friends. I'm friends with these people. And one of them in the professional services space was talking about how they're going back to the office 4 days a week from 2 or 3. And this is going to ramp up productivity. And, I had to mention that we're 100% remote with 80% of our people not even located in this country. And we have no issues at all with productivity, zero. And I really attribute that to the fact that we have a great culture in the company. And I actually learned this from Sean years ago that, when you have a great culture, it takes care of a lot of issues with not only customers, but with your workforce. It's
funny. Sean is one of those people who thinks productivity goes up if you get your people back in the office, I believe.
Yeah, well, and in all fairness to legacy companies, if you've traditionally been in the office, I think it could be harder to make remote work. In all fairness, we started in 2018 and we were remote from day one, 100% remote from day one. We've made it work.
Right. Right.
But again, I think our culture is a big part of it.
So let me ask you about that. We all know hiring is hard. Nobody bats 1,000. It seems to me it would be even harder for you. You're hiring people in other countries, other cultures. What have you learned about doing that?
Well, for us, it's very different. So, we hire for ourselves, for our own team, and then, we get 4,000 to 5,000 applications for our pool for our clients, and we whittle that down to like 1 or 2% out of that, out of that 4 or 5,000 each month. So I want to leave that out because that's unique to our business model. But there are things that companies need to do. Let's put it this way. The way that if you've been in business for more than 5 years, maybe more than 6 or 7 years, the way that you should be conducting your hiring and recruiting has changed. And I can give you a few things that I can give the audience a few things that they should be thinking about that they're probably not doing now that will make it easier to hire. And by the way, hiring is really hard. Even companies that are good at it don't get it right a fair percentage of the time. And but let me go through, if it's okay with you, I'll go through some of those.
Please.
Okay, so in no particular order. Number one, you got to first of all, if you don't have a great culture, you got to work on improving that. Let's assume that you already got your culture where you want to be. You have culture by design. It's a positive, healthy, and fun culture. Double down on employer branding. What's an employer brand? So a company's brand is, one way to think about it is, what do people say about your company when you're not in the room? That's your brand, right? Your employer brand is, what do your current and prospective employees say as your company is as a place to work? And the reason this is really important today is because it's in public view with companies like Glassdoor, right? So, when we woke up maybe 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago, I went onto Glassdoor, and unfortunately, what tends to happen on these things is the people that had a bad experience working for your company is the ones likely to post. And we didn't have a great score, so I simply just asked the entire team. I said, I don't care what you say, just go onto Glassdoor, please, and post your experience. And now we have a great Glassdoor score. And I just heard from my head of recruiting that there are Facebook groups throughout Latin America that talk about us in a very positive way. So you got to, just like you're thinking about your marketing and your branding to your customers, you got to be treating your talent pool as a customer base too. And you got to really look at your employer brand. So that's the first one.
While you're talking about Glassdoor, just a quick question. Do you encourage people to respond if there's a negative review there?
I don't have a thought on that, but now that you asked the question, I absolutely would. Just like if you should do the same thing as if there's a bad review on Google for your business. That's the way to think about it. Jumping to the next thing is recruit and interview with upskilling in mind. So what's upskilling? Upskilling is when you take somebody, could be a current or prospective employee, and you train them up on a new skill. Now, this could be internal training. It could be external training. A great example of where a lot of companies can do this now is with AI, right? AI is really important. We may or may not get around to that on this call, but use AI as an example. Well, let me use another example. Think about it this way. Let's say you're interviewing 2 candidates and you have 10 requirements for this role. Candidate A meets all 10 requirements, but the cultural fit really isn't there, right? Whatever that might look like. Candidate B, great cultural fit, but it only checks 8 out of the 10 boxes. Hire candidate B and upskill on those two skill sets where they may not have the experience. Number one, you can teach skills, you can't teach attitude. The other way to look at it is you may never find a candidate that has all 10 boxes checked. And if you keep looking, months go by, and your company suffers with every time you have a seat that goes unfilled. So I've been noticing our forward-thinking clients, for lack of a better way to put it, they're hiring candidates where there's a great fit, and yeah, I got to train them up on this software package or whatever else it might be. And that's working really well, and it works well for us too. By the way, we've been doing so much upskilling that I mentioned to you, we had our EOS quarterly meeting today. So we had our whole leadership team there. Most of them are in Latin America. Every single one of them, other than my partner and I, and these are the leaders of our company, they started at an assistant or coordinator level. And between upskilling and some other things, they've now risen the ranks to the leadership level. That goes to show you what the power is there. And then I guess the last thing I'll cover today is look at your recruiting process. Hopefully, first of all, you have one, and tighten it up. Like a lot of companies during the pandemic, what they did was they looked at their whole entire customer experience and where can we improve it? And you have to do that because of what I call the Amazon effect. Whether you're B2B or B2C, your customers are still people, and Amazon has spoiled everybody, right? It's just easy to do everything on Amazon, right? So you got to do that same thing for a recruiting process. Are people filling out the same form more than once? Are they when they're interviewing multiple people at your company? I'm not suggesting to reduce the number of interviews, but is that all taking place over 1 or 2 days, or is that taking place over a week? You got to shorten your cycle time, make it efficient, make it fun. Pretend you're recruiting, trying to solicit a new customer, and you got to put your best foot forward. So look at that entire process and see where you can make it more "quote unquote" customer friendly. So those are a couple of ideas on how you can improve the hiring process.
The first thing you mentioned was the importance of culture. Is there anything particular you would highlight in terms of building a culture in a remote business?
So it's a great question. I can just tell you what we've done. Number one, and these are not in order, but number one, we tend to over communicate. So we have our EOS weekly meetings in each department. We have one-to-one meetings on a regular cadence, whether it's every week or every other week. We get together with fun things. There was like a talent show that we had last week. But
you're saying over communicating is a good thing.
Yes. It's more important to do in a remote environment because you don't have the water cooler, right? You can't slide your chair back and look at the person in the cubicle next to you and ask them a question. You can do it, of course, through chat, and then we also encourage video communication because it's much better than just audio, and it's the next best thing to being in the person. Our leadership team, and most of them are in Latin America. We get together in person twice a year. We do encourage local get-togethers, and we also recognize people consistent with our core values. So we came up with something, and you can blog, WorkBetterNow.com. You can blog for this. You can search for the blog on the W Awards, where anybody in the company can recognize anybody else in the company for going, above and beyond the call of duty, tying it into one of our 6 core values. And you should see the look on people's face when on our weekly all staff call, they get recognized. It never gets old. It's inexpensive. It's easy to do. And people want to get recognized, and it's more important to do that in a remote environment. So those are a few things to do. And of course, if you're not sure what to do, ask your team or have an outsider ask your team. Hey, what's really good about the culture? What's not so good, and what can be improved, and how would you improve it?
I'm going to ask you a bit of an unfair question. If you can't answer it, that's okay. But you've given us suggestions for how specific individual businesses can deal with the talent crisis you've described. Have you thought at all about what would solve the talent crisis for small businesses in general, a larger, more macro solution?
No, I don't. It's a great question, Lauren. I don't spend a whole lot of time thinking about those things. I really try to focus on the things that I can control and how we can help how we can do our part to help small and mid-sized businesses.
I was afraid you were going to say that.
And by the way, some of this is not easily or even possibly solvable because it's a numbers issue. A lot of it's a demographics issue. The engagement part, maybe not so much, but there is just a simple demographics issue too. That's a big part of this.
All right, then the last question I have for you, I just can't resist. You mentioned AI and the impact it's having and what it's changed. What should small business owners be thinking about in terms of using AI in all these areas? Okay,
so I'll give you a bunch of things, but in short snippets. Number one, before AI comes automation. Automation is now accessible to every business. It's built into almost every piece of software there is. If it's not built into the software, you have what I call API connectors, things like Zapier, Z-A-P-I-E-R, that'll connect a spreadsheet to a piece of software, 2 pieces of software. you have to be using automation for a number of reasons. Number one, you'll reduce man hours needed to do tasks. Number two, you're going to reduce errors. Number three, you're going to improve cycle time, which will probably relate to a better customer experience. So for
automation to do what, Rob?
Automation to do anything you can in the company, anything that's repetitive. Everything should be automated. So for example, when we have a new client here, we literally click a button in HubSpot, and I don't know how any of this works, but my team does. A whole bunch of things happen. Emails go out to different departments, blah, 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 blah. All of that stuff, a lot of companies are doing manual. So automate everything that you can in the company. Now let's talk about AI. By the way, you don't have to do that before AI, but it's an easier thing to do. AI, I love Peter Diamandis. He's from the X Prize. His quote, which is, there'll be two kinds of companies in 2030. Those using AI throughout their businesses and those that are, he says, out of business. I'll say that are really limping along. AI is unbelievably powerful. There's so many things you can do. But you know what? Rather than me, and by the way, we're using AI throughout the organization. Rather than me tell you about how we're using AI, let me tell you about how I, as one of the two owners in the company, got the company excited about AI. And the way we did that is a few months after ChatGPT was released, maybe 4 or 5 months after, I realized this was going to be a big thing in the company, and I'm the visionary in the company. That's my job to look for these things. I also knew that as one of the older people in the company, and only semi-digitally native, I'm not going to be the one to figure how to use this stuff, right? And granted, I use AI every day, but I'm not going to be the one that's going to figure out how do we really leverage this in the company. So I simply went to my leadership team. I said, look, you guys have probably heard about AI and ChatGPT, and there's more stuff coming out every day. This is going to really impact our business. I want everybody to start experimenting. And just, if you need some money for subscription fees, no problem. Document what you're doing. If something doesn't work, don't consider it a failure. Just share it with other people in the team, and just play around with it. And then we encourage them to get their departments involved. We're now at a point where we're using AI throughout the business in different areas, and we're always looking to do more. And we actually have an AI show and tell once a month, and it's everybody's favorite thing to do. So we're not only using AI in the company, but we've created a culture that embraces change, which is really, given the pace of change today, is really critical that all businesses do. You have people that aren't afraid of change, like people who say, oh, I'm afraid AI is going to take my job away. It's the wrong attitude. How am I going to use AI to do a better job? Or how am I, as an owner, going to get everybody in my company to start embracing AI? That's what people should be thinking about.
That's a great answer. Again, I just can't resist. You say you're using it throughout the company. Can you give me a quick show and tell, a couple of things that you think might be a little bit surprising about how you've been able to use it?
So one of the things that we started to do, we're still tweaking it. It's early stage, but it's top of my mind. So I'm going to mention it to you because it was just mentioned an hour ago, is, we have a proprietary process after a client does a consult, and we essentially get a job description, as well as the soft skills they're looking for and all that stuff. And we have all of these candidates that have gone through our also proprietary process of that whole screening process. Then we have to match them, and that's a hand match or tailor match process. So how can we use AI to speed up the process and actually make it better? And that they're now playing around with a few tools where we can use AI to take the essence of our process, but make it even better. Because look, our process, you got to remember, our process, even if you tag certain things with the candidate and you tag certain things with the prospective client, it's still it's still a manual process. But AI can do this better and faster, because if you've tagged certain things, they just look for the same tags, and they automatically put people together. And then we can have people that will review that just to make sure that AI is not hallucinating or anything like that. That's one example. We're using AI on the marketing side constantly to tweak our messaging. We don't use it, by the way, to create blogs. I think that's a grave mistake, but you can use it, and I can explain why if you want me to. But we do use
Not even to do a first draft?
no, not for a first. I think that's a terrible move. I would use AI to come up with the ideas and maybe possibly the outline, and then certainly for the editing. But here's why you don't use AI for blogging content. If you're going to create content that you're going to use for marketing purposes, and as you know, I used to have a content marketing firm. If you're going to use content, that content has to change the point of view of the recipient for it to make any type of impact. And in your case, as a business, hopefully to get them to nurture them or to become a real prospect and ultimately become a client. That point of view changing content, it's rarely unlikely that rests in the AI world. That rests in whatever it is that secret sauce is that you do, right? So in our world, what I'm blogging about? I'm blogging about how companies are, thriving with remote talent. I'm going to use real world examples for that, right? Other companies might be, you might have, and there's a famous guy, his name is escaping me right now. He had a pool company and he did a lot of Marcus Sheridan, thank you. So what he was doing with that content, and the reason it worked so well, is he just simply took their expertise and turned it into a blog or possibly video format. The stuff that's going to change the point of view of the recipient is that expertise that you as an entrepreneur or you as a business do really, really well. And you're not going to get that from AI. AI is going to regurgitate the same stuff that's out there already. Hope that made sense.
That does make sense. Actually, this was all great. Rob Levin is co-founder and chairman of WorkBetterNow, which provides remote workforce and virtual assistant services to small businesses. Rob, thanks for taking the time.
Thanks. Really enjoyed the conversation, Lauren.
Me too. Have a great week, everybody.